Disclaimer, this video is educational and informative in nature. Do not contact anyone shown in this video. Also, this video is discussing steroids. Do not use steroids. This is entirely for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Starting a cycle of steroids is a good idea. Well, for some people, considering their goals. And for those people, if you thought that you were going to be a top-level bodybuilder, an IFBB pro, a fitness influencer, and rise to glory, just the same as everyone else did, and all you needed was, well, a 1-inch needle going straight through your buttocks. The sad reality is that just doesn't happen in most cases. It doesn't happen on average. Hell, it doesn't even happen in likely 1 in 10 people within this industry. So you might have a good intention by starting steroids. You might think that the top that you'll rise to is quite high and you'll be above everybody else until you find out that's not true. And it certainly doesn't stop people from trying, even saying that. This is the chase of the carrot, which, damn right. I mean, chasing carrots is a really good thing and can motivate you to do a lot of different things in life that you wouldn't have done before, chasing the idea of something. It's just that you would hope the idea of something and you chasing it brings you to a good destination and not a bad one. And that's exactly what kicks this video off today. Josh Barrett is a 19-year-old kid from the UK, and sadly, Josh is a ginger and has suffered from this affliction for his entire existence. So building muscle was the obvious solution, as it was for me too. It's a terrible disease.
We've all seen them on the playground, at the store, walking on the streets. They creep us out and make us feel sick to our stomachs. I'm talking, of course, about ginger kids. Oh, sick! Gross!
Josh starts out his journey as a under-muscled kid. He basically looks like he's never really trained much before, and then has a pretty impressive journey on his way to build more muscle. Now, this journey only started on Instagram about 4 months ago, so we're not talking much time under the belt here. This is also a very stark reality for us to realize. You see so many kids hopping on the Azul as early as humanly possible. We're talking about somebody who looks like they never even trained before, didn't perfect a diet, didn't perfect a training regime, and then just hopped on the pharmaceutical. This is a fucking terrible idea for many different reasons, but let me just briefly explain a concept to you which I think is extremely important. When you're natural and you're trying to build muscle, you have like a 10% margin of error, let's say. Whereas if you bound out of that 10% by not sleeping correctly, maybe getting very few hours of sleep, maybe eating incorrectly, maybe training incorrectly, that 10% margin is very thin, right? And as soon as you're out of it by doing one of those bad habits or many of them, your progress slows drastically, if not stops in its tracks, right? It's terrible, right? You, as a natural bodybuilder, you really do have to be on top of your shit. But as a non-natural bodybuilder, as somebody who's taking a little bit of pharmacology, it exceptionally widens the margin of error. So you have maybe a 40% margin where you can do tons of shit wrong. You can sleep incorrectly, you can eat like shit, you can do horrible things in your life, drink, party, all sorts of stuff, and still have an amazing physique and continue to make progress. It's one of the reasons that steroids are so appealing to people, but also one of the reasons that it can be such a clouding thing to start early. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you're giving yourself an ability to progress, even making errors. So you've never actually understood how to do things correctly in the first place for you. You never found out what your body best responds to. And so you're always going to be progressing with one arm tied behind your back. And in the mirror, you look at it and you're like, hey, I'm making progress. But would you have been able to make more progress if you had figured everything out from the start? Would you have been able to use less and get more in terms of drugs and had a healthier life because of this if you had just taken the time to figure out what you need as an individual to progress in the gym most optimally? This is the conundrum that people face when they start so early. And really, at the start, he wasn't even natural. I mean, he literally jumped straight into the fire. He started with MK677 and RAD 140. And we're going to get a little bit technical here because I think this is it's so important. I can't stress enough. I talk about this in so many videos, but it still comes up in almost every other video. So we're breaking it down again. These are two compounds that most people think of as safer because they're technically not steroids. So in their mind, labels mean everything. But the thing is they still slap down your fucking endocrine system like they're hitting it from the back, and you can't do anything about that. MK677, also known as ibutamoren, is a growth hormone secretagogue. That means it basically tells your body to release more of its own natural growth hormone by mimicking another hormone called ghrelin. Yeah, the hunger hormone, right? The thing that makes you feel hungry and your stomach churn. That's why a lot of people who take it say they feel like a garbage disposal, literally after a few days. Mechanistically speaking, what happens is when it binds to the ghrelin receptor in the hypothalamus and pituitary, it causes a sustained release of growth hormone, and subsequently that growth hormone converts into IGF-1, and so in theory you'd get better sleep, deeper sleep, more protein synthesis, and maybe a little bit of joint benefits, right? But that's if your diet and training is on point and you have a massive amount of discipline. Otherwise, all you're getting is a fat kid with a high hemoglobin A1C, a ton of water retention, and likely depression that you don't look anything like you did just 4 weeks ago. The average newbie who's taking MK677 thinks it's going to be the thing that's going to put the cherry on top of his gains until he realizes that he gained 11 pounds and it wasn't muscle. It was water retention and fat mass, and that was it. Now, if you would counter this point and think, okay, what could I take that isn't an experimental compound that has been approved in humans and provenly worked for, I don't know, almost 5 decades, 6 decades, more than that, 7 decades now? Growth hormone? Like actually just growth hormone? Cheaper, easier, more effective? Safety profile exceptionally high. Like, this is the thought process I go down, and I don't understand how people lead themselves down this process. And now RAD140 testosterone is just a whole different animal. RAD140 is a SARM. It's called a selective androgen receptor modulator. And it sounds fancy, and the claim is that essentially it's going to give you steroid-like muscle growth and be very selective in its effects to just skeletal muscle and bone mass, right? Bone mineral density. Spoiler though, that's fucking bullshit. It never worked out, and that's why it's not approved for humans. It failed all clinical trials. RAD140 binds to the androgen receptor in muscle and bone tissue, and yeah, it's a little bit potent. It can increase muscle and definitely increase strength. I'm not denying that fact, but selective does not actually apply here. It suppresses your natural testosterone, which it was not supposed to do in theory. It crashes LH and FSH, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, and you'd still need a PCT after using it, pushing people to then just get on testosterone after it anyways, so it's just a gateway drug. And worst of all, there's no long-term safety data on this at all. There's none. In fact, there's more acute danger data than there, like literally hepatic failure, steatosis, all of the bad things you could imagine from just simple cycles of RAD140. So Josh, our brave ginger warrior here, didn't just dip his toes in, he fucking cannonballed into the deep end with an inch of water. But to be fair, he made some progress. But of course, a lot of people would if they were taking these things. Also, he's slamming White Monster as all 19-year-olds should, so I guess he's on the right track. I'm 28, and I drink an exceedingly large amount of White Monster. I don't know what that says about me. But here's where the story takes a massive turn. And this video I wanted to just give a quick shout out is sponsored by Anabolic Insights. You want top tier lab testing without breaking the bank? You should really consider checking this out. Anabolic Insights gives you the most affordable panels out of any distributor of lab work I've ever seen before. You need to stop getting ripped off by going to these clinics that are charging you $600+ to get a very, very basic panel when it shouldn't even cost $200 to $300 maybe. Using their programming, you can actually track your workouts, your supplements, your protocols all along in tandem with your blood work. You can see exactly what's moving your markers where and get a really detailed analysis of all of this information. You can swipe through highly interactive charts to see what is working and what isn't working, so you can toss it when something's not doing what you want. And then best of all, you can let AI dive into your lab work and everything that you've displayed for it, including the workouts, the supplements, and all of that, to give recommendations based on what it's seeing. Ready to dial in your health like we know you need to be doing, especially if you're here on this channel. You probably know about peptides, anabolics, and all the other things that women are using, as well as men. It's really important. You can click the link down below today to find out how much your labs would cost to get started, and I bet you it's way cheaper than anything you've seen before. Back to the video. Josh posted this video about 2 weeks ago. And I'm going to show you it sped up a little bit because it is relatively slow. But basically, as you can see, he starts his real first cycle, which arguably should have been his first cycle, actually, compared to the RAD140 and such. But we're going to touch on this. 4 months into this cycle, it looks like he's aged several years, looking ripe for a mid-20s maybe. I don't know, approaching 30. Furthermore, he has cystic acne all over his body. His face is swollen from the amount of cystic acne he has around his eyes, which is crazy. crazy. His arms, I mean, everything. And it's developed in such a short time frame. Like, it is terrifying to think about this happening to anybody. We're going to touch on mechanism and why this happens and how you might be able to prevent it. But first, I want to let Josh explain himself, because he does go through what he was doing and why.
Right, so I'm just making this video to explain the last video I posted, which ended up getting over 600,000 views. Many people messaging me, and a lot of people hate him. So, as you all know, I was running a cycle of testosterone, right? Started on 300. So this is just me explaining what actually happened. So I started on 300. I felt really good, you know, no acne. You know, I was getting little bits here and there, but, you know, everything was healing fine. And then, you know, I was like, F it, let's go 600. So we ran 600 tests with 150 NPP per week. So this is nothing to do with my coach at all. My coach was amazing throughout the whole process. It's more the fact to do with me. So I wanted more of everything. I wanted to be bigger, faster, and thought, F it, steroids would do that. And it really didn't. I was inconsistent. My diet was horrible. My intake of food was horrible. My just overall health downhill for about a month or two. Inconsistent with pinning. Everything just went all downhill. So that's why acne, you know, kind of flared up really, really bad. For anyone who is still messaging me, you know, a bit of advice. Everyone's been messaging me advice. I've got Greg Doucette, which is, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He messaged me. He followed me as well, which is pretty crazy. So I don't mind blowing up over a bit of hate, you know. Everyone's going to hate. But there's images up here. That's how I'm looking just now. You know, I'm looking a lot bigger, looking a lot fuller. My diet is back up to scratch. My pinning's back up to scratch. We have reduced it to 240 per week. No NPP at the moment. So 240 tests per week. My acne is healing. It's more the fact, a lot of you kind of, you know, you hate about such little things, you know, yeah, fair enough, I've done something stupid, we all make mistakes. But there's a bit of acne, you know, it's not incurable. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Be looking a lot better. You know, this transformation is going to be absolutely mental.
You heard it from the man himself. He said literally it and added the test. He brought it all the way up to 600 milligrams a week. It was initially 300 milligrams a week. He didn't even give himself enough time to assess how much that 3 milligrams was working, how effectively it was working, before jumping up to 600 milligrams and then adding in nandrolone, which is crazy. He thought that basically doubling the dose would mean double the results. And almost any time that you do this, it does not equal that. It never does. This obviously resulted, as he said, in mental side effects. He started to fuck off with his diet. He stopped consistently pinning and administering the drugs, which is a very bad problem. Explaining this very briefly, just to get this out of the way. You create stable serum levels of these hormones when you inject them, right? That's the goal. You would reach a stable serum concentration, so you're not going up and down, up and down. How do you do that? Well, you understand the half-life of a drug. So let's say when you take a compound, let's say it has a 24-hour half-life. That means, let's say you take 50 milligrams, in 24 hours, you'll have 25 milligrams in serum. And then in 24 hours after that, you would then have another half amount in serum, right? And then it would just keep going. It takes about 5 half-lives to eliminate the compound from your blood or body. So with testosterone, if you infrequently inject, while it does have a longer half-life, you still see these towards the tail end of that half-life, it drop down, right? And so infrequent injections creates really destabilized blood serum concentrations of hormones, especially testosterone. This waviness with peaks and troughs is a very bad thing for reducing side effects. Where you experience the most side effects when there's peaks in androgens and troughs in androgens. If you can keep things stable through daily administrations of micro doses of these androgens, you're much, much better off to avoid a lot of the symptomology that a lot of people do experience when they run pharmacology. And so one of the worst things that you could do if you're experiencing side effects already is destabilize those blood serum concentrations, because that is only going to exacerbate current symptomology. Then NPP on top of this, nandrolone phenylpropionate, it's a crazy mixture. But what I want to talk about is the acne devastation on this man. This is textbook blast and crashed that we're seeing here, where somebody runs a first cycle, has a horrible experience, and they just absolutely go crazy. Like, they mess it all up and they start trying different things, experimenting with different things, and create way too many variables to figure out what the hell's going on. When you start hammering your body with androgens, testosterone, nandrolone, you name it, there's going to be a lot of androgen receptor activation. Yes, on muscle, yes, on bone, but there's also other sites. There's almost organ in your body has androgen receptors, including your skin. Androgens like testosterone and its potent cousin or metabolite dihydrotestosterone bind to the androgen receptor in the skin. This ramps up sebum production like crazy. Sebum is like basically an oil. It's triglycerides, cholesterol, a little bit of bacteria, and essentially when you start overproducing this, your pores get clogged because they can't get rid of it quick enough. And then on top of this, that foundation of oil on your skin, that sebaceous fluid, causes overdevelopment of bacteria, and this causes dysbiosis of the skin, leading to even further worse bacteria. This causes inflammation, which is the whole reason behind the cystic acne. It's a lot of inflammatory response, and cystic acne isn't just normal. It doesn't pop. It's deep, it's inflamed, it's literally infected, and it literally triggers the immune system to go haywire. It's an awful, awful thing that people have to go through, genuinely. And I just can't help but wonder, again, I've talked about this in many other videos, but who is guiding these people? Like, who's to say that this wasn't started when he was 18? I don't know, but he's 19 years old. What coach is saying, hey man, we're going to go up to 750 milligrams of total weekly androgens. You've had 4 months of training. Everything looks good. Let's just ramp it up. And he said too that he was experiencing a little bit of side effects on 300 milligrams. So they doubled it. It blows my mind. And I get the whole, you know, a lot of people approach me with other videos I made, the morality behind, well, if he's not going to get my guidance, he's still going to do it. He's still going to do it without any guidance. So I would rather give him the guidance than to not. To be honest, I would just step away from the situation entirely. Like, I don't agree with that take at all. I mean, essentially, this kid has zero foundation of training knowledge, of nutritional knowledge, of biochem. Like, he doesn't understand what he's doing. He doesn't even understand the basics of fitness and health, and we're blasting off. I mean, it's like putting jet engines on a rusty bicycle. It's gonna go fast, but for how long before the wheels fall off? And Josh mentions in his video that the acne is not a big deal and it will heal, but acne of this significance usually ends up almost always with significant amount of scarring. And as a younger guy, it might be an okay thing to just brush this off and be like, it's no big deal. It's just acne. It's gonna heal. Everything's fine. I promise. We're gonna kill this. I'm gonna become the best bodybuilder in the world. And you have this delusion, but at the end of the day, man, this is a pretty clear-cut sign that you're not doing so great. This might not be your path, you know? Let's go back to the basics. Let's go back to just trying to figure out how to eat, how to train, and do that consistently for at least 2-3 years. At least, brother. Get to 21, for Christ's sakes, first. But, you know, ultimately, it could be worse. It could be worse, I guess.
Eh sì ragazzi, è proprio vero. Giudicare un libro dalla copertina.
Oh shit. I'll see you in the next video.